Greetings from the far side of the galaxy. I'm Fuuri, your host the most, back with another new idea. So, because those big videos are still hard to make and will take time, that I barely have mind you, I figured I'll fill in the gaps with videos like these. They're basically just like the Furry games and animes video, but about smaller stuff I wouldn't otherwise talk about. So let's get started with the first thing on today's docket. The Lacad Daisy pilot. Lacad Daisy is the name of a webcomic started by Tracy J. Butler in the far-off year of 2008? Goddamn. I've actually been following it for a while, not since 2008 though. I would have been in like elementary school at that point. But recently, things have changed. A pilot animation and a Kickstarter that managed to raise $2 million actual dollars. I'll definitely cover all of that when it comes out, but for now, let's dive into a bottle of gin and the Lacad Daisy pilot. The story takes place in St. Louis, but not modern day, rather during Prohibition. I know, huh? You don't know what Prohibition is? Right, not all of you are from the States. Prohibition refers to the period where alcohol was made illegal in the United States. Yeah, I'm not making that up. That is something we actually did. Thus, alcohol became a black market commodity and plenty of gangsters decided to make their money by selling booze. I know it's a little weird for me to introduce the setting first, but that's because I really like the novelty of it. Not many stories take place in the Roaring '20s era of America, and Lacad Daisy is better off for it, giving itself a unique identity and presentation. The pilot has three main characters, all of which I class as high concept, meaning their gimmicks can be described in a single sentence. Rocky is the leader, and while he is physically weak and quite weird, he makes up for it with his intelligence. Calvin is Rocky's younger cousin. Despite his dislike for the job and danger in general, put a gun in his hands and he's suddenly not the meek kid you knew before. Finally, we have Ivy Pepper, who's a bit happy-go-lucky, deciding to ignore the clear and present dangers of being a rum runner or dating Shooty McNoscope, Calvin. The three play off each other well, showing what makes them tick as the action in the pilot ramps up. The high-concept characters continue to the antagonists with a Cajun, chaos-loving Savoy twins undercut by the calm and meticulous Mordecai. And character writing really is one of Lacad Daisy's strong points. I don't want to bring up the comic too much because that's just not what we're talking about, but all of these characters have some detail that undercuts their supposed vivacity. To keep things simple, all of them have nowhere to go, which explains why they continue to put themselves in danger. We get hints of it towards the end of the pilot when our trio returns to their home base, the Lacad Daisy Speakeasy, a place that has seen better times, and the pilot ends with the proprietor reminiscing about days long past. It's not a terribly long thing, running about 25 minutes, so the average length of a single TV episode, and is quite rough around the edges. Sometimes you can see the underlying shapes of the characters and the sound mixing could use a little work. Namely, during Rocky's speech where I had to strain to hear what he was saying. That being said, it's quite impressive for an indie project. The animation is abundant and it's consistent with neat visual tricks too. An example of which being whenever Mordecai takes a shot, the way the camera shifts and the music just fades out, reminding us to take him as seriously as he takes himself. Less original, but still appreciated, is the way fantasy and reality bleeds together as characters reminisce or simply lose their minds. It helps preserve the strong visual style that the comic thrived on. The thing that impressed me most as I watched the pilot was how well it introduced the world and its characters. While we aren't directly told Mordecai had betrayed Lacad Daisy, when Seraphine asked him if he's getting sentimental, we're supposed to pick up on it, quietly cluing us into a key part of the world, but then, for as cold as Mordecai is, he doesn't shoot Ivy, quietly revealing a bit of his character. It's these quick, effective, and silent pieces of storytelling that are littered throughout this entire pilot. Like how if you have an eagle eye, you may notice the quarry Rocky destroys belongs to Wick, who he plainly dislikes. If you've read the comics, you'll notice so many tiny details just casually thrown in. Rocky's weird cactus thing is the most benign, however, there's also details like the funeral home supplier referencing the Arbogast. And some moments in the pilot are lifted almost straight from the comic, like when Victor smiles. The surface level entertainment and the deeper details manage to make the pilot good fun to watch for newcomers and fans of the comic alike. I give this pilot a 9 out of 10, super close to being perfect, only held back by imperfections that are mostly superficial. I look forward to the day the series proper drops. I'll definitely be covering it on this channel. I actually look forward to it so much that I even donated to the Kickstarter, but that's neither here nor there. Let's focus back in with the next thing I want to talk about, something I call the Rubik Collection, simply because it's the easiest way to group it all together. Named after the programmer, although all of these games are team efforts. It's a group of 3 furry games that are all very different from one another. What they have in common, well, aside from creators, is that they're all free on itch.io and that they're short. You can play the entire collection in about an hour if you have good time. The first game we're talking about is Time Keep, a simple 2D puzzle platformer. Basically, you play as the only surviving daughter of a family of royals with the power to manipulate time. By clicking on pieces of your destroyed home, you can bring it back to the past and create a path through the level. This can mean restoring a chandelier to get a place to stand, or going back before spikes or a wall were there. But be warned, your time is limited and all the pieces of the past will disappear when the bar runs out. I really like how in the end it asks you to start managing which spaces you click, because the more spaces you rewind, the faster your bar drains. Thankfully, the bar fills up quickly, meaning you rarely have to wait any significant chunk of time to get moving again. The levels are also reminiscent of Super Meat Boy, short and quick, so it doesn't matter too much if you start dying. Granted, I'm very bad at video games, so you probably won't die as much as I did. The game is short, like I said before, with only a few levels to go through, but hidden in each level are gems. I'm not 100% sure, but supposedly collecting them all will do something. Time Keep was a surprisingly quick and yet surprisingly charming game that kept my attention the entire time I played it. The next game in the collection is Cairn. It follows a wolf, I think, as they try to jump their way to the top of a tower. However, the game isn't a simple platformer by any means. You'll first notice it in the way jumping feels. Your height is decided by how long you hold down spacebar, but direction cannot be changed in air. Your direction is decided by holding down left or right as you jump, not after. You'll often find yourself jumping straight up until you get the hang of it. It's a weird control scheme that actually works really well. Your first and second jumps are actually 2 separate things. You can jump straight up and then decide to change direction. Your character also bounces off objects, and you can use that to further guide your jumps to your destination. It gives you a weird kind of control over where you go, which is something very important. You may have noticed it from the footage and asked yourself, what in the goddamn fuck is wrong with these platforms? What's wrong with them is, well, nothing. That's because these blocks weren't set by the dev, they were set by other players. Whenever you reach a checkpoint, you're given the option to move a single block. The question is, will you help or hinder those who come after you? It's a great gimmick that does a lot to help set the game apart from others while giving you a good reason to go back and play it again. You're even allowed to see the name of the person who placed the block if you go and hover over it with your mouse, so why don't you go ahead and see if you can find Fuuri somewhere in there. The final piece of the Rubik Collection is Star Wind Shrine, an isometric puzzle game where you play as a dragon. The objective is simple: reach the end of the stage. Usually, the exit is blocked off, requiring you to use some pressure plates or light some sconces to get through. But you only have 3 abilities to do it. The first is a simple jump, which is frankly pretty lackluster. It'll definitely take some time to get used to this dragon with the ups of a geriatric white boy. The second is blowing stuff. No, not like that, get off your knees. You can use your super cool dragon lungs to breathe in and then blow out, pushing objects. That's another thing that takes some time getting used to because the game controls like a shoot 'em up, I guess, where the dragon faces your mouse. And since inhaling can move stuff just like exhaling, you'll have to be careful not to accidentally move the boxes. The third trick happens when you inhale, inhale, and inhale. The dragon suddenly pops out their soul, which can walk through gates and light the sconces by breathing fire, but you only have a limited time in this form until you got to inhale again. Despite only having 3 tools, the game manages to work wonders with them, asking you to swap between your abilities, demanding an understanding of the game's mechanics. I actually spent the longest on this game specifically because the puzzles aren't that easy. Like, yeah, I beat it in just over 10 minutes, but it was an entertaining just over 10 minutes. The only problem I had with the game is that it's hard to tell what changes what. There's a reason games usually have the camera go and show you when a gate or door opens up. If I had to rate the Rubik's Collection individually, Timekeep gets an 8, Cairn gets a 10, and Starwind Shrine gets a 9. Sorry this video is short, it's actually shorter than I expected. I wanted to cover the furry fighting game Mofu Mofu Sensen in this video, but Persona 3 Reload came out this week, so that sure as shit didn't get done. Now let's wind this video down with our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to 87 Werog, Deku, Zora Chow, Choron, Galafade, Dranking Yara, Anon RC, Lightning Shadow, and Kayun. For 4 stars, we have Miki Moon and Miko, the Isolated Isles. For our special 5-star shoutouts, we have first Vanilla Flower, the original Wasteland, and Poor Mage, the Forgo Dream. Then The Good Old Days, the Everbay Coast, followed by Hodari Lion, the Natural Plains. Next, Sky King 64, the Winter Horns. And finally, Mahagasaur, the Lab Discoverer. Thank you for watching, do be sure to like and subscribe and check out my Ko-fi and Patreon. As always, I'm your host Fuuri, signing out.